It's 2020 and Apple just released one of their biggest innovations yet, Apple Silicon. At the time, it was a huge step forward. We went from warm and, for the most part, slow laptops to really fast and quiet laptops. The best example of this is the MacBook Air M1. It was fast, it had no fan, and the battery lasted forever. Now, it's almost 6 years later, and personally, I'm still using the MacBook Air M1 as my main laptop. In this video, I'll answer the question if you should still buy this MacBook in 2026, or if it's better to get one of their fancy new M5 MacBooks. The M1 MacBook Air is of course equipped with the M1 chip. It has 8 CPU cores, 4 of them are high performance cores and 4 are high efficiency cores. It has 7 GPU cores on the base model and it starts at 8 gigs of RAM. When doing some light to medium computer usage like browsing the web, writing emails, playing some light games and even some light photo and video editing, this machine runs just fine. Personally, I have the base model, and the only real bottleneck I feel is the 8 gigs of RAM. You can see the memory pressure creep up into the yellow as you start opening more apps and tabs. In some cases, you can really feel the slowness, like tabs having to reload or app switching being slow and choppy. Overall, still really good performance, but it's easy to push it to its limits, especially with the 8 gigs of RAM. One of the most important things in a laptop is battery life. And I am happy to report that the battery life on this laptop is amazing. Matter of fact, it has the same advertised battery life as the newest M5 MacBook Air, standing at 18 hours. Now of course, this is in optimal conditions. Personally, I tend to get around 10 hours of battery life, which is more than enough. Unfortunately, it doesn't support fast charging. It charges to 50% in about 65 minutes, compared to the 30 minutes it takes on the M5 MacBook Air. So that's something to keep in mind. The part of this MacBook that you will be looking at the most is the display. It has a 13.3-inch Retina display, a resolution of 2560 by 1600 pixels, 400 nits of brightness, which is brighter than most average Windows laptops, and P3 white color. It's a really nice panel to look at. The high resolution makes text razor sharp, and the high brightness makes it possible to work in bright rooms. The colors are just as you expect from Apple. They're vibrant, accurate, and look very similar to an iPad or iPhone. Something to keep in mind is that the display is on the smaller side. It works well when viewing apps in full screen, but when you have 2 apps side by side, it gets cramped and you might miss some of the content. Many people consider the weak point of this MacBook its connectivity. It has 2 Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports and a headphone jack, making it impossible to directly plug in any USB-A devices, SD cards, or HDMI devices. To solve this problem, most people use an adapter. I plug it into my MacBook and it gives me a lot of different types of ports. Another good thing to keep in mind is that this MacBook only supports one external monitor. You can leave your MacBook open though, making it kind of a second monitor if you need it. The last thing I want to talk about is the overall build quality. And honestly, this is where Apple really shines. The M1 MacBook Air is fully made out of aluminum, and it feels very solid. No flex, no creaks. The keyboard also feels very pleasant to type on. The keys have a satisfying amount of travel and feedback, making long typing sessions comfortable. Then there's Touch ID, and it's built right into the power button. It makes unlocking your Mac and auto-filling passwords feel like a breeze. The one weak spot is its camera. It's a 720p camera, and in 2026 it's just not that great. It gets the job done for the occasional video call, but don't expect it to look sharp or handle low light situations well. The mic, however, sounds fine for most calls, and it shouldn't give you any issues. The speakers are surprisingly good for a laptop this thin. They're loud enough to fill a small room, and the sound is clear and balanced. Just don't expect a lot of bass though. Here's a clip so you can judge yourself. So, should you still buy the M1 MacBook Air in 2026? If you can find one in good condition for the right price and your usage is light, like browsing the web, emails, word processing, then sure, it's a surprisingly capable machine for that use case. There are two things holding it back though, the 8 gigs of RAM being the biggest one. It was already on the low side in 2020, and in 2026 it shows. And with Apple likely dropping software support for the M1 in the not too distant future, it's not a machine you'll want to be using as your main 5 years from now. So treat it for what it is, a great budget laptop for light use. If your budget allows for more, just get an M4 or M5 MacBook Air. You'll thank yourself later.